as independent creators. So I am very, very honored to introduce to you Elsie Escobar, who is the podcast pundit, who has been around, as I put it in the description, since they were typing show notes in the Stones.
Oh my God.
Both
Nice.
Elsie
Just a
and
little
Gordon.
extra. It's a little extra, but I'll take it.
Both Elsie and Gordon have really, truly been pioneers since the early days. And that is why I say it that way, is podcasting is such a new medium, but it is fun because it is such a new medium. And we get to have in our world such really profound shakers and movers in the podcast community. Gordon from Gordon Firemark and Easy Legal, and Elsie with Libsyn and with She Podcast. And Elsie has her own brand of coaching and many things that she does. And we're so honored to have them lead what is a very important discussion to us. We also have in our group Brie Campano from Pneumospect, myself, Trevor from Pneumospect, and a bunch of our friends are here today to talk about it. And we're so, so grateful to PodFest Global 2023 for putting this on and letting us hang out in this side space. It's a real honor to not only have the main stage, but also have this extension of the podcast discussion. I want to jump right into it with Gordon. Gordon, could you take us through some of the kind of overview, give us a quick overview to set our heads. When we talk about ethics in media and ethics in podcasting, where, if ever, do the teeth of the gears meet the closest? How do you see those two things relating most frequently for us?
That's an interesting metaphor, the teeth of the gears. Well, look, ethics and law interchange a lot. And in the podcasting space, look, there are legal aspects to this. And I think for starters, for the most part, being an ethical podcaster means doing the things that keep you out of legal trouble as well. Don't infringe on people's copyrights. Don't name your show after some famous trademark or even some other show's title, things like that. But then really where ethics and law diverge, I guess, where the law doesn't really try to stick its fingers too deeply into things like balance. Do we need to present a balanced presentation about, other points of view on a particular subject? Or how do we just go about sort of being visible and transparent and owning our own point of view and our bias, if you want to call it that? And how do we make sure that the audience understands that what we're doing is a particular perspective and not the be all and end all of things? It's a little, well, we're going to get into talking about journalism and are we journalists as podcasters? And I think it depends on the kind of show. But if you think of yourself as a journalist, you think about presenting things in those ways that I just said.
Yeah, for sure. And I know what you were going to lean into. You were saying it's kind of, in the word we were all on the edge of was fuzzy. It's kind of fuzzy.
Yeah.
And therein lies the show title, is the nuance, the context, the subtlety that is right and wrong, and it's not necessarily legal versus not legal, but the ethical really is like the true nature of the fuzzy that we exist in between. Yeah. And for that, I love it. And that is why we set it up a little bit different today. A lot of times it's a little back and forth. It's a lot of one-way conversation, but I want to get everybody who's here, who I really appreciate. We all really appreciate being a part of the conversation. This is going to make it really robust today. I would love it if everybody, all of us, could jump in the chat today and be brainstorming and thinking. Start now, because in the back half of this, we're going to spend some time with your questions. And there's not a wrong question, because it is so fuzzy with the ethical part of podcasting and media. So whatever is coming to your mind, if you're seeing something, the headlines you want to know more about, or just throw out in the topic. We're not here to resolve everything today. We're here to have an open forum, an open discussion, so we can work through it as a podcast community, and hopefully over time as an industry, and be leaders in that and not just sit out. Because the one way we can assure that we don't get to have any impact is if we don't join the discussion. So it would be super awesome and so appreciated if you all will start now, and there's not a limit. Start posting your questions in the comments. And then when we get to that part of the segment in the back half, hopefully we'll have a whole bunch to choose from for Elsie and Gordon, so that we can speak most specifically to where they're coming from and for the heart of this conversation today. So throw your questions in the chat, get to it. And with that, we're going to have our first prompt, our first pose of question, and that is with Elsie, if she's ready. Elsie, what do you think is the thing that crosses your mind most when it comes to the ethical considerations or concerns or questions that you have from your vantage point with all the wonderful history and experience that you bring?
Oh my gosh, I don't even know if there's one thing because there are sometimes ethically that I think about the entire, all of us. And then there are times when I think about myself. So I'm not going to talk about just myself at this moment, but I'm going to talk from the experience of community and community voices and building communities around our work, right? Because that's one of the biggest things that I see out there, especially with podcasters. Our communities tend to get very connected to us, and then they become a thing. Sometimes we need a place to communicate. We need a place like, Facebook groups or Discord channels or whatever, right? That we start to create these communities. And prior to this, to now, it wasn't so important, but I'm thinking about whose responsibility is it to moderate these communities? And are we liable for possible wrongdoing that might happen within these communities? Either harm that happens to because of them, or maybe within them, as in like somebody says something to another person and something happens inside a community, whether it is a public place or whether it is a private forum. And I'm bringing this up because I can tell you that there came a point with She Podcast. Many of us had She Podcast started off strictly as a Facebook group. And there came a point when we recognize it. And I actually saw in other places that moderation had become probably the most important thing that we needed to do for the group. And we didn't really do that from the get-go. Like we just started it because we wanted like-minded people to be around. And it was so exciting and it was so great and yay and lovely. But then once you start to get more and more and more and more people, moderation becomes incredibly important. And we don't really think about that. With us stingy folks who are in the space, investment in moderators is not something we really think about. And I was just listening to an episode of, oh my gosh, I forgot, the Decoder. And he had the CEO from Mastodon on. And points were made as to the importance of moderation as something that people often overlook. So that's my prompt for y'all. Whose job is it to moderate communities, our own communities, for our own for our own stuff? And how do we and should we be liable to behavior that happens inside of these communities? Or is it something that we should address prior to letting people in?
That's a great topic, Elsie. I'm going to jump in with a little bit of legal perspective and background on that, because it was a question that came up very early on in the life of, online media, social platforms, and so on. You had this is back in the early 90s. I was on a platform called CompuServe, which was all text-based. There was CompuServe, there was Prodigy, which was a little more graphical, and then AOL came into the play. And there were lawsuits against all of those platforms that asked this question: hey, who's responsible when one of the users on this bulletin board says something defamatory or whatever about one of the other users, or anybody really? And who do you sue? Obviously, you can go after the person who made the false, harmful statement or whatever, but the cases basically turned on this question of, was there moderation going on? CompuServe wasn't being moderated. It was an open free-for-all. And the court in that case, it was called Cubby versus CompuServe, found no, they're not responsible. They're like a bulletin board. You put something up on the bulletin board at the grocery store is not responsible for what your flyer says. Prodigy, it went the other way because they did moderate. They had staffers and people that they had under various deals to moderate stuff. And since that was the case, they were more like a publisher than like a bookstore, the court said. So they were held liable. And in Cubby versus CompuServe, it was also a similar thing. So that's what led to, in the mid-90s, 1996, the Congress made the Communications Decency Act, which had a lot of other tendrils in things. But Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act was designed to protect the platforms from this, whether they chose to moderate or not. They won't be liable for the stuff that their users say, and they don't have a legal obligation to take it down. They don't have a legal obligation to promote or not promote certain kinds of content. And that may be what's responsible for some of what we perceive as problems today, but it's also allowed for the internet, these platforms, to grow and become a robust thing that it is. So for all its downsides, it's got some upside too.
That is really, really helpful. And I agree wholeheartedly, Gordon. Elsie, your prompt was it was good. It was amazing. It was that's a really fantastic question. And it's wild to me in some ways that it goes back precedent so far to the 90s, which is where our legal backing is always going to come. If you don't know that precedent, it's who does it exist in the courts already, kind of thing, and is it being re-brought up, which is something we should absolutely hit on before we're done today. Is like, if we have time, what's in the legal system, but also you can follow Gordon to keep up on those things, because he is super good at reporting on those changes in the industry. And those legal pieces are the backbone to, are we going to get busted or not? Because there's always the ethical consideration of how it matches our morals and values. Is it right or wrong? How does society treat us about it? But then there is also the piece where, what has society put in place to potentially punish us if they don't agree with what we did, even if it fits all ours?
Yeah, just to bring us back into the ethical side of it, though, now that we know that there's a law in place that protects these platforms, it brings us back into an ethical question of whether we should moderate, whether we're liable or not.
And I want to hit my friend Bree up on that, because Bree, similar to Elsie, has been in the community oversight from a different perspective, I think, but has been in the community building portion of both the podcast community, but also like the Facebook community at large for quite some time. Bree, do you have any thoughts on the moderation within platforms, but then maybe outside of that? How have you seen it change? And does that cross your mind as a potential concern as well?
Yeah, it definitely crosses my mind as a concern. There's a lot that goes into, like, all of the platforms have different ways of doing things, but Facebook is definitely one of the leaders in how they do things. And I think the others have followed suit, and they do moderate just as a platform itself, but also have a lot of expectations on if you're moderating in a group setting. They have a lot of expectations on the group owners and admin, so your moderators and your administration, because if you are not doing a proper job policing your own space and moderating how things are being presented, right, quotation marks, you can be penalized for it. So it can have a negative impact on many different things. And if you have to look at, like, who can post and who can do things, and what kind of things do you have set up to protect your group? Because if you're getting somebody that's in there posting things that don't fit your values and beliefs and the values and beliefs of the community that you've built, and go against any of the Facebook standards and guidelines that they provide you, it will damage your group. It can be shut down. It can be restricted. You're not going to get pushed out to get new members. There's a lot of different things that it trickles into, and you can also lose your group entirely if you allow them to post something that can be construed as against their community standards. So, and it's something that they may not even know about. So I run a tattoo group. I have about 2,200 members in that group.
Dang.
And I have to be very particular when I tell people what you can and can't post. We get tattoos in all kinds of places. And so if it's something that looks like it could be offensive, I could lose my group, right? I could get in trouble with Facebook, and it's more than just being put in Facebook jail. I could have the whole group shut down. And it might be something that a member has posted. So there's a lot that goes into it. Yeah, they do have rules and restrictions, but they expect you to stay on top of your members and do your own moderate as best you can with rules and guidelines and things that you put in place right when people sign up to be a part of that community.
Yeah, the protocols and the oversight at the beginning is interesting, because then, so what I gather from what you said from your experience is that the moderation maybe from your vantage point should come from the internal source of the community, like that, not necessarily the oversight or the moderation for the community platform at large, but specifically within the unique community that you're talking about. Is that what you're saying? Like did I get that right?
It comes down to the admins and the moderators to be responsible for what their people are posting and commenting, unfortunately, because it can have a damaging effect on the entire group. And you can, as the owner of that page, you can be held accountable for what the people in your group post. For example, and I use this example a lot, but there's a violation that occurred in a group that had about 3,000 or 4,000 members, and someone was talking about some wine that had stained in the carpet. A wine glass had fallen. You could see the wine glass. There was stain. There was a big stain on the carpet, and she was talking about how this cleaner had cleaned it. Facebook saw that as a violation, as harm and danger, because they thought it was blood and not wine. So very innocently posted, unintentional. But if you were to rack up a couple of those violations, you could have your group shut down for that. And it would be inadvertent, and it would be something that could happen. And then of course you do have the ability, you're going to always run across that person or two. They'll come in your group and then do things that are intentionally to harm in some way. And you have to have things in place that prevent anyone, like post approvals on and different kinds of things. You can put keywords in for certain kinds of words in comments that will prohibit that comment from being posted. So
thank you. Yeah. Thanks for clarifying that. That makes it's a little more clear in my head. I want to spin it back to Elsie. And Elsie, what do you think on what Bree was saying about what are your initial thoughts on internal? Because it sounds like that's what you all faced too, is that it got off color, maybe like wasn't reflecting what you wanted in the group anymore. Was that what triggered this? Is like a series of things? Was it a wave? And then also kind of what Scoob is asking in the comments. What did he ask? I had the question right, and then I totally just brain farted.
What are some good ways?
What are red flags that what are red flags you look for if you were looking back on that experience when it started, when you should have been like, or wish you could have been, or next time will be like, I see that happening. Maybe there's something we could put in place or a new policy. Any thoughts on reflecting, and if there was a moderation piece that could have gotten had earlier when you saw something?
Yeah, I think that there's really nothing you can really prepare for, is what it's you live and learn kind of a thing is what I noticed at first. But now if I were to do it again, or if it's one of the reasons that I'm bringing this up for anybody who's watching either now or, the folks that are on with us today, or even people who are looking later, is that building community is a heavy load. And one of the key things that you have to do before you even do anything is to really get yourself, what are those, that parameter, what are the terms of service of being, essentially, of being part of this group? What are the ethical things that you want your group to understand about what type of behavior is appropriate here? And you have to do research to be able to find what that is. Number one, make it super, super clear from the get-go, even if you're just starting out, understanding that you're setting up the space for people to come in, and you've got to lead from that place first. Second of all, you have got to enforce it, because it doesn't matter if it says something. If you don't do it, it's really a really tough thing to keep on changing. And thirdly, I do feel that, there's a lot of us who are doing the creating content and setting budgets and thinking like, can I do this? Can I earn some money? And I understand a lot of us need to be really scrappy about it. And this is a question that I really have too. It takes a lot of time and resources, personal resources, to manage a group accordingly. Consider already starting to set a budget for having somebody that you can pay to help you moderate. And yes, volunteers from your group, great. That's fine too. But also consider being able to do that, because it does take a lot of time. Now, in looking at the challenges that we had, we made it an ethical choice, a mission-driven choice inside of She Podcasts to communicate with one another inside of that group, even though it's called She Podcasts, to have as much gender neutral language as possible within that group, and to really lead from that place of whenever people would post something, even though it's as a whole, you would think that She Podcast is for women. And then we added we added to include other underrepresented genders and non-binary people, things like that. And therefore, we wanted folks to, instead of going like, hey, ladies, I have a question, or hey, girls, or whatever, to just have it be gender neutral and just be like, hey, folks, how's it going? Hello, everybody. How are you doing? You know, things like that. And it is still a really, really big, heavy lift in the sense that if somebody does that, one of our mods needs to go in there and go like, hey, thanks so much for sharing that. Could you change that to be gender neutral? And somebody has to constantly be in there asking that, because people, for number one, they don't read instructions. They just don't.
Right.
People don't read instructions. So you have to constantly be telling people how to do or what not to do. And I don't know. I mean, it's so rough. Like right now, we no longer allow posts to just go into the group. Everything has to be approved by hand. And sometimes it takes us 2 or 3 days to approve things, not because there's that much, but because we simply don't have time. We just don't have time to be doing that. So it takes we have to wait it out and have to wait till we can go in there and approve people, and people get mad. But literally, it's a free service. Y'all are here and it's a free group.
That hits so well, because I think about like the scaling issue of that, of course, is like when you get to a platform that's got 40, 50, 60, 100,000 users, it's like where, and that comes back to what you said, do it early, do it often. So when the moment comes that it's so big that maybe you have some capital resources to make the right decisions, whether that's like exactly the way you said, where it's so close like that with the moderation. But I do think about that, and I think often about like how many people would I want in a group before I would then want like you said, a moderator or a lead or somebody who is kind of like rallying everyone around them, but also providing some of that guidance to try to prevent and proactively. But that's big lift. It's a big old lift.
Well, I just want to mention there's this African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And that's really a testament to the value of having a team of people working on things. And where there's a will, there's a way to find either the budget or the volunteerism that you need to have a team to make these things happen. And if you're inclined to do the moderation, either because you have to keep the group on the platform, or because it fits with your values to do so, then I think that's the way to go. And that's another point I just want to make, is value-driven decision making. Setting out the rules in the first place based on what is it you value? What are the values we have in this group? There are some groups that it's going to be a free-for-all because we value that. We value the open, encumbered, unmoderated discussion. And when you come in here, guess what? That's what you're going to get. So deal with it. And there are others where you want to create a little more of a congenial or safer or more different kind of values, I guess, is what I'm coming down to. So you're right, Elsie, people don't read those guidelines and instructions and rules, but having them is still useful, so that when you have a moderating decision to make, you can point to it and say, we've set these guidelines up and here's why they are, the values behind them. So that's why we decided to do what we did.
Yeah. Thank you so much for clarifying that, Gordon, and bringing out the values. Love that. It makes it a lot easier from a business standpoint. That's typically the way I look at things, is from a very much as a small business and a small business owner.
Mm-hmm.
I've been fortunate to work with a lot and be in that role myself. And that's how I look at it, is core values and boundaries, like we've talked about, is setting some of those boundaries so you don't have to make every single, like Elsie, you were talking about, that's got to be such a wicked headache. And also the nature of the beast as it grows too, is like, how do you set up enough boundaries so that we can have fun and let ourselves loose a little bit and wear our lay to things. No, I'm just kidding. but to loosen up a little, because when you loosen up, you get some authenticity, you get that real discussion, you make real connections, and gosh, it's such a stinker of a balance. I want to throw it over to Bree and see, Bree, what do we got for questions in the chat? Is there anything you want to pull up? Is there anything heated in there? I've been commenting out, but I haven't been able to quite literally read a whole lot.
I've been looking at all of our, because we are live streaming in a whole bunch of places. So we're so glad that you guys are all here with us and coming in from PodFest Global. So appreciative to Andrew and Chris for letting us be a part of what's happening there, and so excited for that. If you have any questions, I actually just wanted to throw something out there as I go through some of the questions, and you had said this too, what are core values? I've heard a lot being talked about in PodFest Global this week about finding your niche and finding the right audience. And I think that if we can go back to core values, if we can make sure that we are looking at that as a key component into what we are building when we are building a podcast, because we are using our voice, we are using our message. And if we can hold tight to that, then our core values there will be something that we will make a part of the community that we want to build, because that community is a vital component of our podcast and our message. We want the audience to go along to listen. So we want to connect with them. And if we can make those core values vitally important to ourselves and our podcast, and then make sure that's seen and heard in our community, what are we doing? What are people doing? How are you doing that? That is, I guess, my question. Do you have a set of core values? Did you think about that when you started your podcast? Was that something that was part of what your mission statement was?
Great
and I'll throw that to anybody.
Throw it right out. Anybody who has not had a chance to unmute themselves, which is about half, what do y'all got on this? Do you have core values? Do you have a question about ethics for us? Feel free to unmute yourself and throw it in. And that's the one that Bree has for us. So I would love to know your response to it. Do you have any values? Do you have any guiding principles? I'll leave it muted for a second and give anybody a chance to jump in.
I'm going to go ahead and jump in here just because I can. My core values really just boils down to giving the new entrepreneur a chance to speak out. Because a lot of times when I was growing up and I had ideas and entrepreneur tendencies, I was always pushed down because I didn't have experience, or I didn't have, the time in or anything like that to be heard. So now what I'm doing is actually giving new people that chance, that way to be able to get their word out there, that one place they could all go to make sure they've been heard and get their story out. So really a core value for me is just to give people a chance to be able to speak and talk about what they're really into when it comes to entrepreneurship and things that they're learning in their adventure, in their entrepreneur adventure. So that's a really strong core value for me. I don't know what it's worth for anybody, but that's what I have to say.
I appreciate that, Scoop. Heck yeah.
I can tell you that there's a lot of us creators that don't really ever lead from that place or even start, Bree, to your point. I've always led from that place. So usually ethics always lead the way for me. My values always lead the way for me in all of the things that I touch. And I realized after I started to I had a mentorship experience, which is, it's still live, if you will. I haven't done it for about 2 years now, or maybe a year and a half. But one of the core tenets of the entire experience is really tuning into what that is for you, not for your podcast, not for your business, not for your show, not for any of that stuff, but for your own, literally just a personal way of moving in the world. And goodness gracious, people are very resistant to doing the work, not because here's the interesting thing is that there's resistance because folks don't make the connection as to why it matters to my work. Why is this important? I want to learn how to grow my podcast. I want to learn how to get more listeners. Why are you making me think about this stuff? This is crazy, right?
So you get like the algorithm.
Yeah, it's like, yeah. And so you get the resistance of it. But every single time we go through the process of all the steps that I lay out and I ask these questions for us to really discuss them and to have a place where you get an opportunity to spend the time figuring it out on your own, by the end of the experience, they've got their answers. By the end of the experience, they don't know. My point is that they no longer need me. They're able to make these choices, these larger choices about their work that they weren't before, for no other reason other than the fact that they've sat down and they've really figured out what matters to them. And so it is probably the number one thing people resist doing, and it's the most powerful thing to do after you're done. And then you honestly can just do what you need to do with your content, with not much after that. So
you had me cheering from the back of the church on that one, Elsie. Big believer that too. Is like how fast can I communicate with someone and help them graduate? Because that way they can come back and say how great they're doing in 6 months or whatever. But it's about helping them with that second and third, and just providing that space to keep thinking, think deeply about it and what it means to you. I love what you said about having owned it internally, because to what we've talked about in general, it is hard. It is a big lift to be our best selves all the time. It is an unfair ask of anybody who puts themselves in the public eye, and also it is the ask. So having your ethics, your values, so that you're doing right by what's inside of you when you go into those conversations, and having those established, such a huge benefit. It is one of the by far the biggest difference between the entrepreneurs I've worked with, because I've worked for small business owners, and I've been really lucky to see some that were successful, some that were unsuccessful, some that had caps on their business model, and some that didn't have caps on their business model. And there's absolutely a tie back between the success of your business and the profitability, and how well you can navigate your own ethical boundaries. I mean, it is there because people look for consistency. We talk about it in how we post our podcast. Consistency is key, and that is true with values too. So I like yelling from the back. Everett, I want to give you a chance. I think I saw you unmute, so the floor is yours, Everett.
Well, I just kind of had a question more towards Gordon at the very top talked about, copyright, different things when it comes to podcasting and whatnot. I always not struggle, but I really question when I listen to different podcasts and they feature clips from, movies, pop culture, things like that. And I'm wondering, because I've really did research, like my podcast I do about talking about movies and things like that. And so I'm would love to feature that. But then I'm like, but technically, I don't have any of those copyrights. So I've erred on the not using them. But I'm like, I wonder if all of these different podcasts, do they seek out these rights to get that or not?
The first thing they teach you in law school, Everett, is the phrase "it depends."
Right. Yeah.
and it really does. I mean, here in the U.S., we have the First Amendment, free speech, and that is a principle that sort of conflicts with the idea of protecting copyrights. And so the courts developed a principle called fair use, as you've probably heard that term. And that's probably what most of these folks are relying on. Whether they should be or not is an open question, and whether or not any copyright owners complain, we may or may not ever hear about it. I know you're in Canada, and a number of other British Commonwealth countries have a similar principle that is called fair dealing. And so you want to look up your particular country's approach to this. But the basic idea is, when you're doing something that's criticism or commentary or very educational, and you're only taking small portion of the larger work as a whole, and you're not doing something that's going to have a significant impact on the market for the original or those kinds of things, it's you get into an area where it's not going to be considered infringing if it sort of satisfies these public policy considerations. The challenge with it, of course, is we all think we should fall into that category rather than the other, and it's a case-by-case determination. The facts of each individual clip are going to be something to think about. But if your show is a review show, you're well on the way to satisfying that first element and that market for the original one. There isn't a market really for clips so much as if you were creating a substitute listening or viewing experience, that would be a different kind of a story. So I can't say yes or no, give you advice about it here, but those are the kinds of factors. And you can,
I just always think that when you listen or you think, you're like, there are all these different ones have these like official rights or things like that. Yeah. But thanks. Yeah, that's good. Good thoughts.
Yeah, definitely want to check out fair use. Google me and fair use, and you'll find a couple of descriptions and things like that, or explanations about that on YouTube and whatnot. But yeah, it's a big challenge. The other thing to know about it is that it's a defense, which means by the time you really get to have the discussions about it, someone's filed a lawsuit against you, and you're in the position of defending that, or you've had a DMCA takedown, and the embarrassment and then the negative hit that you take from that can be significant too. So I'm not a big fan of relying on it without good cause.
That was lovely. I love the nitty gritty. I love sinking the teeth into the legal. I saw Matthew, who was, I believe, also an attorney. Is that right, Matthew? I saw you shaking your head. I saw that you were getting involved and you had some thoughts on the fair use thing. Anything to add to the fair use conversation?
I may be the subscription attorney, but I'm not the podcast lawyer. So let's defer to the podcast lawyer for that. It's, everything Gordon said. It's complicated, right? Like if you're doing news coverage, or you're covering a movie or commentary or reviews, that's one thing, right? Like my mind also goes to just people using stuff that's not licensed for their videos or social media content, which is why I love a tool like Descript that doesn't just edit, but it gives you licensed material to use too, right? So like that's where my mind goes with copyright as well. So like making sure you have a licensing right and whatever else you're using that's not particular commentary related. And big fan of Unsplash too for that reason.
I'll tell you, Matthew, first rule of lawyering, you just broke it. And first rule of good content, you got to disagree, man. Two lawyers could argue for days.
And get paid for it.
Right.
That's even better.
That's why you didn't, because nobody's paying us for it.
Can I add in a little bit real quick?
Yeah.
My name's JR from West Virginia and Commonplace. So on that, how are y'all doing? Now, on that bit about films, we covered a film called Song of the South, which is Disney's most controversial film. It took us 9 months to get approval from Disney to cover this. Now, we weren't allowed, we were actually given a copy of the movie, but we were not, because that's one movie that's not distributed, has never been released in the United States. You can get it in Australia, Canada, wherever. We were given specific instructions on what we could do, what we could say, what we could not say. We had to submit a copy of both podcasts we did, because my wife, she's Caucasian. So we did a standard version with me, obviously, and then a black and white edition. And when we did both copies, we ended up we had to go back into both episodes and take out certain sound bites, certain things that we could give our voice, our opinions, but they didn't want a derogatory nature going towards Disney whole in that period of time when that movie was released. And afterwards, we did like maybe a 7-month stretch with them going back and forth. And then by February, obviously, we released it in Black History Month. We were able to release it with them, given solid approval. They gave us images that we had to use. We were not allowed to just go out and get this or that for it. And with doing that episode, that was one episode that we couldn't use as a sponsored episode, or our silent partner could not. It was a free episode we did out there with just a labor of love. So you have to be very careful with what you do with movies in certain instances like that. So that's one thing that I do have expertise on there. And outside of that, it was smooth there. Now going into my core value and ethics, my core value and ethics change with our podcast, because with our show, we have sponsored episodes and we have our silent partner, and then we have free going episodes that we do that are the more creative stuff that we do. Our core value changed because once we started getting sponsored and more people were getting their hands involved with giving us money, we had to follow certain guidelines. We have to do certain things a certain way. So a lot of the content that I put out necessarily on Saturdays and Tuesdays, that's my free stuff. My Thursday show is basically the cookie cutter. Someone has paid me to do this show. We bring on certain guests that align with what our message has always been. We're a society culture podcast, and we want to get obviously West Virginia Commonplace. We want an uncommon person. Like, for instance, we had on the most controversial guest, a Catholic female priest. We had her on for 2 episodes.
Wow.
So what we did for stuff like that, to get around some of our ethics and to see where it aligns with our audience, I released this episode to my paid listeners early to get their opinions, to see if this was something that should come out to our free audience. And like from there, that point on, we learned that people want to hear things, but you have to curate it in a certain manner to keep your core audience and to bring in new audience. If you just slam it out there and just throw it out there with no regard, and you don't have a way to control its narrative once it's out there beyond show notes, like when people want to interact on our Discord and stuff like that, we set certain perimeters that, freedom of speech is everywhere. But like a hard topic like that, Catholic religion, we threw out so many examples of, hey, this may cause a stigma for you. This may do this, and that. We follow so many ways to coddle. I hate to use that as a term, but we do so much coddling with certain topics, like anything that we do with race relation, which we don't do very much. But in the month of February, it's something that comes up. I'm in West Virginia. I'm on the borderline between West Virginia and Ohio. So my audience, and with the company I work for, I'm a store coach for Walmart. So I travel all over the United States remodeling Walmarts. So I deal with so many different people. So we, just like what we do, we just make sure that we're real tight on who we think this episode is going to pertain to. So the LinkedIn people, that's their Facebook. The regular Facebook people, Instagram people, we make sure that we stay very tight in the lines of, hey, we're leaving this open. Give us your honest opinion on what you think of this. And then we come back from that. And then that reflects our core values, because we're saying, hey, here's our product. If you like it, you like it. If you don't like it, please let us know the merit and the reason why you don't like it. Give me that creative criticism that makes sense in our arena.
Yeah, give us something to chew on. Love it.
JR, I have a quick question for you. Something you said prompted me, and by the way, all of what you said was great, and I really think the way you engage the audience and you're sort of taking that pulse, measuring the temperature of things on an ongoing basis is really great. You mentioned you have silent partner, and that you weren't allowed to have the Disney thing be a sponsored episode and so on. Are you reasonably transparent with your audience about the fact that someone's paying for the content? Or
yes,
so the sponsorship messages are pretty obviously sponsorship messages.
Yeah, when you listen to our Thursday show, you can tell the difference, because it's like a life coach type deal.
Gotcha.
It's more of just a question and answer deal. The other stuff that we do on, like, for instance, we're doing a coverage of WrestleMania 39 this weekend.
Yeah.
So on the Saturday show, it's a fun show. You can tell the difference between, it's not that it's manufactured on the Thursday show, but you can tell we bring life coaches on. We bring mental stimulation. We cover that mental positivity stuff on Thursday. And then the pop culture we do Tuesday and Saturday. And you're going to have your fun stuff. So our audience, as we've, curated and got our audience to a certain degree, our listeners don't necessarily drop off, but they know that, hey, I might not need to check out Saturday, but I'll definitely be back on Thursday.
Well, I asked because I think transparency, back to the the ethics questions. I think transparency is an ethical question, and how much transparency do we need to give our audiences so they know who's paying for this? Is there an ad? Is there an endorsement? Or is this a pay to play? Did the guest essentially put up the money to support the production of this episode? Because those kind of things they affect listener decision making, and I think that's really, really important. So congratulations, kudos for doing it the right way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yay. I really love, I think when you were talking through what you had to do your episode on Song of the South, I think that really exemplifies what happens as a creator when you are starting as a sort of I'm going to use this term. It may or may not rub you the wrong way, but it being an indie, right? You're doing all the things yourself, and you're being scrappy, but scrappy never means unprofessional, right? I'm being scrappy right now, I'm in a, public space, but you can still hear my volume. You can hear that the quality of my audio is doing really good. I did my very best to look as good as possible. Obviously, it's not in a studio. That's what I mean. But once you start to deal with the big boys, girls, people from larger companies, your ability to create the content that you want to create and the vision that you want to create, once you start to either get the money, get the partnerships, or even get access to said thing, your life will become a back and forth communication of having to cross T's, dot I's. You want us to take that out? Oh my God. I mean, it becomes extraordinarily difficult. And I'm only telling you that because from your experience, I have had that experience with other larger corporations as well, where you have to plan twice as long for absolutely everything. And creativity most of the time has to go out the door, and you end up literally getting a script and you're like, these are the things you can say. This is what you can't say. And it really sucks the joy out of you in some ways. Mind you, though, sometimes you get the dough, right? You get the money, or you get the partnership, the visibility of it, and you get the press. So those are like
to the footage,
or the access to the footage. Exactly. So you do get a little bit of that, but like the understanding, I think, for a lot of us creators that are starting from nothing and thinking that if we get to that, once we get that partnership with, Spotify or Apple or whatever, then it's going to be amazing. This is going to be great. And then you realize that there is, even though you're getting let's pretend you're getting millions of dollars, there is something else that you're going to be paying for, which is the freedom that you had prior to that. It's no longer the same. It's no longer going to be the same show, even though you may own it, if you will. But there are lots of other things that you're going to have to now be wary about, because the things you say, how you hold yourself, the types of back and forth communication you have to have with said company, all of those things now are part of you. And that's when ethics comes into play, or your value system. Are you okay with that? Is that the type of work you want to be putting out there? And that's obviously, it's a personal decision. I'm not saying one's better than the other one. I'm just saying that this is what happens, right? And I think going back to the conversation around moderation and things like that, which kind of brings us back here, is the fact that if we do want the freedom, right? Going back to structures coming out now like Mastodon, who are essentially moving from the place of freedom and everybody like just getting your stuff out there and not having the man tell you what to do. There comes also a price to pay, because you do have to invest in those systems. You are free, and yet you are now bound to making it work for yourself. And it's a balance that you're going to have to figure it out. And I think that right now we're at the cusp of that, because you see that there's so much right now, like there's too much power going in some places. And I think as creators, we feel that, and we want to like move over here because this gives me more of an opportunity to keep things open. But at the same time, again, the responsibility that comes from reinventing things in a new way is really huge. And are you ready to take that on?
Yeah.
Could I add one more thing in there real quick?
Sure.
One thing that's different about our podcast is we're one of the only few podcasts, and I found this out when I was at Podfest from some inside people. We make our money inside podcasting. We don't have something we're selling outside of it or anything like that. Like Spotify, we're one of the only podcasts that make money with Anchor, which is Spotify now. Like, Spotify has come back on certain episodes that we've done thus far and said, hey, we need you to pull this, we need you to pull that. Because we did a transgender episode with someone that I knew close to me. And this person gave a lot of information that was not factual when we went back and researched it after we had already aired the episode. So I've learned the downturn of, you can lose a little money here or there, inside of podcasting. But my question to you, Elsie, is this: like, where do you draw the line on the pronouns and how you handle our extended communities inside podcasting? Because what I've tried to do with our shows, I've tried to have everybody in a gauntlet if I can at some point, because we got 12 months in a year, we've got X amount of weeks to do shows. I try to cover every demographic of sexual orientation if I can. How do you handle that?
Of making sure that everybody has a voice? Is that what you mean? Like being in there?
Yes,
Yeah.
Great
So
question.
that once again goes back to what Bree was talking about before when she asked, what are your values, right? We don't really have, like, that's not our responsibility to make sure that everybody has a voice. it is my personal value system to be representative in the work that I put out and to be able to pass the mic to folks that often don't get the mic. But that's my personal value. And that's the mission that I stand for. And that's when I want to get behind that. That's what I'm about. Right. But that's not like, you don't have to do that. So it becomes, for me, whenever I'm curating any kind of content, whether it's I have an access, let's say somebody gave me an opportunity to be part of a panel, or I got a speaking opportunity, or I have an opportunity to create a series of 5 episodes of a podcast, or I'm doing a live event, like 3 videos that I've been commissioned to create 3 videos. Then whenever I do any of that stuff, I look at that and I go, in what way can I bring folks here that are representative of our world and make sure that they have a position that feels empowering to them, that they can really show their expertise and put them in a position that maybe they wouldn't get otherwise, because I'm the gatekeeper at that point, right? So that is a value that I lead with. But again, how do you draw the line? Sometimes it's tough to find a person that aligns with everything that you're looking for, meaning you want to have a non-binary individual that is a person of color as well, that is a lawyer, that is an entertainment lawyer, right? There's like, holy crap, am I going to find that person? That's going to be really hard for me to find that one person that ticks all those boxes. If it is that important to you to have that, you're going to invest the time in finding the appropriate person that has the level of expertise that you really need. But sometimes you're going to have to just be like, the conversation is the most important part, meaning I need to have this conversation. This person is the one that I need to have because I really love what they bring to the table, and we can have that meaty conversation that we need versus ticking all those boxes. And again, it needs to go back to your value system and whether you're doing it from a place of true, that it's really deep inside your core versus a sense of, I just need to have representation and I got to tick these boxes, because that's a different type of a thing.
Okay.
I hope that helped.
Yes, it did.
That was awesome. I so appreciate the both of you engaging in that discussion. It's something that Elsie has brought up in our discussions privately and publicly with Fuzzy Lawgic. And I'm super stoked that y'all had an opportunity to engage on that. It's really, really, I think for all of us, a helpful and relevant discussion to be a part of, especially when we don't feel like we understand it, is to listen and to see that engagement. And I feel very honored that discussion happened here today. So thank you. I don't want to let that slide. That's a really, really critical discussion to not let slip under the radar, and to always keep on it and ask questions and try to learn. So I'm really, really grateful for it. And I could talk about Fuzzy Lawgic things for days, because there are truly so many things that are the subtlety, that is law, that are ethics, that are the way that we're treated socially as public figures. And make no mistake about it, as podcasters, we're public figures, we are entities, we are businesses, we are brands. And as Elsie said, and Gordon has backed from a legal standpoint, and I think socially we all agree that it would probably help to have some of those laid out ahead of time. And if we didn't have them ahead of time, do it now. Like, it's not too late. Nobody has said that you can't go in and modify those things, update your values, reassess how they fit with your brand and with your heart and with your soul. As you learn, because we are evolving creatures in terms of our brains, at the very least. There's new information that comes in so rapidly, especially in the world that we exist in with tech right now. It feels like the first 3.5-4 months of this year have flown by when it comes to technology in particular, when it comes to trying to keep up with how it impacts our lives, how it infiltrates different places that maybe we weren't expecting it before. Thank you, everybody, so much for being here. I know a lot of us have work to get back to, time stamps to get on, and I just cannot thank you on behalf of Bree, Pneumospect, Fuzzy Lawgic, Elsie, Gordon, the crew. It has been a true honor to get the space and time to speak at PodFest, to be on the cornerstone, but to be able to keep these discussions live. And the one ask that we have, I have saved the chat, so I will be in touch with you with ad pack that we promised to a winner, but we're going to go through the questions. We're going to look at all the questions that were submitted, make sure we get them from the other live chats that might have been going on. We will be sure to reach out because you're all in the Whova app. We have your contact information, but stay in touch. Do us a favor and make this time worth it by not letting these discussions stop here. Doesn't have to be with us. We'd love it to be with us. We're live on Friday every week at 11 Eastern. 11 Eastern. That's the one. And we would really encourage you to join us. But if you don't, that's fine. Take these discussions back to your groups, to your people, to your podcast, and do not let them down. Help us be a part at Fuzzy Lawgic of guiding this wildly intense, close family net community that we all have this cool opportunity to be on the front wave of, and to be led by folks like Elsie and Gordon is a true honor. Thank you again to both of you, Elsie and Gordon, for allowing us to pick your brain, to be a part of your world, to hear what it was like all of 15 years ago in the Stone Ages. And now it's not the Stone Ages, but to now be still guiding it. We just cannot thank you enough. And again, to the Podfest folks, Chris Kermistos and Andrew, who get it done for us. Thank you to all of you. And yeah, we'll be back next week on our normal time at 11 on Fridays. This has been Fuzzy Lawgic. Thank you so much, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you all. Thanks all.
Thank you so much, Elsie.
Oh my.
This was fun. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
All right.
Rock stars, have a great day.